Everything has been going so great for the Ohio State Buckeyes this year. They're ranked in the top 20. They've won 9 of their first 10 games of the conference year. Keita Bates-Diop just playing great ball, one of the front runners for Big Ten Player of the Year, averaging about 20 points a game. So with all that in mind, who better to talk to about it than the head coach of the Buckeyes, Chris Holtmann, who joins us now. Chris, I want to start with this. About a week ago, I asked Gary Williams, the great coach, what he was most impressed with you in your first year. And what he said, it was the way players are responding so well to you. He said that's just really hard to do when it's your first year as the head coach. How have you been able to get that?
Well, great kids to begin with, Mike. I think it begins there with having great kids, great people that want to be coached. You know, we've really encouraged them from day one that, hey, if we're going to be good, we got to accept coaching. And we've got Coach Mon and his staff left us with some great upperclassmen who've really led the way in that area. And Sean Tate, Keita Bates-Diop, those guys, through their example, wanting to be coached, have led the way. And obviously Gary is one of the all-time great coaches, so to have him say that means a lot. He's such an outstanding coach.
You mentioned Keita Bates-Diop, and he's always had some talent, but he's never quite been this fully developed. What's the biggest reason he's playing so well this year?
Well, I think obviously health. I think, Mike, also a perspective that's gained from being out last year, and also some of the stuff that he went through with his family, his brother's situation last year was such a, I think, a significant issue. It brought great perspective, I think, to Keita. And Keita's come back this year even more mature. He's always been a mature kid, but even more mature and motivated to kind of take advantage of every opportunity that he has in front of him. And we've seen that in the way that he's played.
And, of course, he had that great comeback at the end of the game there against Penn State. Hits the 30-footer to give you guys a tie game, and then 5 seconds later, Penn State hits a 35-footer. What were you thinking? What was going through your head those last 10 seconds?
You know, I thought our guys offensively, I was not pleased necessarily with how we defended for most of the game, but I thought down the stretch we played with great poise offensively, chipping away, and finally giving ourselves a chance to win. You know, as a coach, you're trying to find a way to put the ball in the hands of your best players and hope they can make a play. Keita did that. His teammates deserve a lot of credit for helping him in that situation, but obviously he hit some really tough shots. And then, you know, listen, Penn State played really well. They deserve a lot of credit. We would have loved to have defended maybe that last possession a little bit better. Having said that, give them a lot of credit for knocking down that shot.
We talked earlier about the upperclassmen you have. This year that includes Andrew Dakich, and he's been consistently getting 18, 20, 23 minutes of game time. When did you start realizing you wanted Dakich to play this much?
I would say, you know, we scrimmaged Xavier earlier in the year, and obviously Xavier's a really good team and good program, and you know, he performed there, Mike, maybe even a little bit better than I anticipated. And I think at that point we realized that maybe he was going to be able to give us more than what we initially thought. We always knew that he was going to be in our rotation because we had a lot of respect for his competitiveness and his ability, but I think we realized early on that he might be able to give us more than maybe what we thought initially, which was going to be, you know, 10 to 15 minutes a night. And there's been some nights where, you know, quite honestly, he's been hard to pull off the floor because he connects our team. He defends with great attention to detail. And he wants Ohio State to win, and that's really his only motivation in this.
He's been such a great surprise for Buckeye fans, and so has C.J. Jackson, almost tripling the point production per game that he had last year. What are we seeing from C.J. Jackson now that wasn't quite visible before?
Well, he's been forced to play a really important role, and I do think when you're, you know, last year he had some really talented guards around him. And he wasn't forced, you know, same thing with Keita early in his career. You know, those guys weren't forced to play the kind of roles that they've been forced to this year because, you know, we do have some depth issues. So I think there's freedom in that. Now, obviously, you got to be good enough to perform. And I think he's increased his confidence level with each and every game. It's not been perfect. He's had times where he struggled. But he's a tremendous he's a tremendous kid, and he wants to get better. And he's an example of one of those things we talked about earlier with guys that want to be coached and want to improve. He's always been a guy that's been a very good shooter. I think the other aspects of his game have been the reason why we've been able to get off to a good start.
Who on your team don't you get asked about enough? Who is bringing value but doesn't get talked about enough?
Well, believe it or not, I think that Jayshawn Tate, given how consistent he's been, in some ways is undervalued. No, I won't say undervalued. I just think Keita's busted onto the scene. You know, when you're a guy like Jayshawn, who has been a good player in the Big Ten and been a guy that has now had to, in some ways, say, okay, Keita, I'm going to allow you to be Keita. There's a lot to be said for that. And not only that, but I think he's, you know, relatively quietly putting together maybe his most complete season. Now, we've got a lot to play. We've got 8 more games. We've got a challenging week in front of us. Can he continue to lead? But he's a guy that comes to mind. And then I think our bench guys have all stepped up and played really important roles at various times for us.
We've talked about a lot of very good things about your team because it's been such a great year, but I know you're a head coach, so you want to see improvement. What areas do you still want your team to get better at?
You know, Mike, I think first and foremost, we have to bring we've been really consistent in our competitive approach for the bulk of the year. I did not think that we had quite the same level of that in our last game. But again, I give Penn State a lot of credit for that. But I think we have to continue to embrace who we want to be, what our team identity needs to be, and that's always going to begin on the defensive end. We have improved in some areas offensively in terms of our turnover rate has went down. Our efficiency has been pretty solid. But for me, I think it always is going to begin on, can we defend and rebound at the level that we need to give ourselves a chance in every game. We didn't do that last game. I'm hoping we learn from that this week.
It's been a great start to the year. Chris Holtmann, congratulations on the first handful of games. Thanks so much for giving us some of your time.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Great to be with you.